Hi viewers, and welcome to Get Well Stay Well on Revelation TV. Thank you so much indeed for joining us today. And as always, I'm Si and delighted to be joined by a lovely Felicity. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you, Si. We've got a great programme. As always, don't I always say that? We've got a great programme.
Do you guarantee it, do you, Felicity?
I guarantee it, because I do so much work. I was up till 4:30 this morning,
wow,
preparing for this. And I found more and more exciting things to put in the programme.
Wow.
Now, the viewers are going to love this. So it's food choices. It's really good.
Where do you get the ideas for the programmes?
I think God gives me the ideas for the programme. I really do, you know, because sometimes I think, what am I going to do next? And there's fracking, there's all kinds of things that we could do.
Yeah.
And, you know, the general pollution in the world, because I feel I'm here with this wonderful ability to be able to talk about the things that are going on in the world that affect our health. And mainstream media are not always covering these things as they should. So we do it from a Christian perspective, and I'm sure that I do a lot of prayer, and I'm sure that God does drop the right ideas in my mind, and I think, wow, thank you, Lord, that's wonderful, let's go with this
And I
one.
imagine you obviously speak to so many people as well in your week, and I'm sure by speaking to people with different health concerns, that must also give you some ideas for the programmes.
It's amazing, it really is, and people literally all over the world.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a wonderful perspective, and Facebook has really opened this up tremendously, because I've got so many people on Facebook now, like Howard has got, new people who are, you know, just fascinated about the topics we're talking about, and then they start to learn there's a Christian perspective to these things.
Yeah.
And life is not as gloomy as it appears to be, because there is hope. You know, there's this wonderful hope that we have. So, yeah, I just feel that we're here with Get Well, Stay Well. It's really special, and you're the next generation coming on, and, you know, that livens it all up, and we're thinking about our children and grandchildren. So it's a great opportunity to spread the word.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what are we doing on today's programme?
Well, we're starting off with Food Choices, which is a new film made by this man, Michael Siwerski. And again, it's one of these exposures, really, of what's happened with the corruption in our world. You know, the meat and the dairy industry, who are making so much money and destroying the planet as well with environmental concerns, because growing so much cattle for people to eat, the rich people in the world to eat the meat that they're producing, is causing a huge amount of pollution in the world as well, when 2/3 of the world probably are living basically on rice and vegetables and don't have the health problems that we have, in the West. So we're going to be talking about a family as well who decide to go vegan. They've got 2 teenage daughters, and the mother very wisely says to the girls, well, Dad and I have decided to do this. You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And in fact, the girls decide they will.
It's interesting, yeah, because it's interesting when, especially when you talk about teenagers, and the best way of putting things across to teenagers, sometimes they can be very defensive. So if you say you will become vegan, they will automatically take the defensive side. But with the parents obviously giving them that choice, they found the way in the end.
You know, I have so many teenagers joining my Facebook page. Isn't that interesting?
Amazing.
And sometimes they're in sixth form colleges, sometimes I think they're even younger than that, probably.
Right.
But I don't know how old they have to be to have a Facebook page. Is there a limit of
Probably
some kind?
legally, I would say probably 16 plus.
Okay, well, anyway, lots of young people, and they're really interested. And so they're starting to watch TV, you know, they're starting to watch Revelation TV.
Amazing.
And what a joy to see our site coming on every day, you know, because I pass by, of course, every day on my way to the studio. And love to see all these amazing girders and things going in now. And it really is exciting.
So what sort of feedback are you getting from these younger people? Are they already involved with health? They're interested in the topic? Or tell us a little bit about
Well, they're
that.
always interested. The girls, as you know, always want to look slim and fit and beautiful. I'm just amazed at so many boys as well.
Interesting.
Who are really interested in their health. I think they've seen their parents' health break down.
Yes.
You know, with diabetes and heart disease and stuff. And anyway, it seems to be getting out there. And, you know, the YouTubes that I select are usually quite friendly for everybody. They're not too difficult to understand. We don't have a lot of, you know, technical terms. So anyway, it's really catching on, and I thank God for that. And I know it's God who prompts people to turn on the programs, you know.
It's interesting you say, because we're talking about young people, we talk about social media, and a lot of us, our young people, are on social media.
Yes.
And we're living in the selfie culture right now.
Yes.
And it's all about the image of how they look. So do you think that's partly the reason why they're starting to become more and more interested in health, because it's so, their image is so important?
Yes, I think that's it. And I also think that a lot of the footballers and the sort of celebrities, in inverted commas, they have changed their lifestyle and they're into healthy eating. You know, the vegan or plant-based, I preferred the word plant-based to vegan, because vegan could be baked beans on toast, you know, which is not going to do anyone any good. But I think that the role model thing is important when they see the footballers and the great athletes of our time who have changed their way of life. I think that's probably, they're all watching on their smartphones, you know. I don't think there are as many on computers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all on demand. But it's interesting when you say they're looking up to their role models, especially the athletes, because in the past, you might think of someone who's on the raw food diet or who is a vegan, and you think, oh, they've got no energy, or, you know, they're obviously not eating any meats in their diets. Whereas some of these athletes, triathletes, Ironman champions, they are vegan.
Yeah, I mean, they're plant-based. That's the great thing. And I think that, you know, they find they've got endless endurance for carrying on, whereas the meat eaters have had to contend with all the pollution that's in the meat, actually. And anyway, people like Caldwell Esselstyn, top cardiologists, and people are saying that, you know, you really can't afford to go on eating meat as it is prepared today, as it is raised and then killed and then the way it's prepared. So it's very, very interesting, and it's lovely to think we have so many young people out there following us.
Excellent. And all our young people, any viewer, you're always welcome to our show on Get Well, Stay Well on Revelation TV. So our first item is talking about Food Choices, the documentary. Let's have a look at this now.
Our planet faces a lot of problems, but in some parts of the world, people live in a time of overconsumption, abundance of food, and an eagerness to be fit and healthy. The supermarket is overflowing with options, but despite that, we are poorly advised in nutrition and easily vulnerable to misinformation. Unreliable slogans, inaccurate health promises, and colorful, tempting packages are cluttering our relationship with food and risking our well-being. We are bombarded by conflicting information about food, diets, and supplements. So how can we know what's best for us? Which foods improve health, and which ones can potentially promote disease? I have struggled with these questions for a long time, and it has been a challenge to find a diet that would help me achieve my health goals. After trying several yo-yo diets over the years, I decided to change my lifestyle by simply incorporating lots of plant-based foods into my diet. So far, it has worked for me. I lost 50 pounds, got my blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol under control, and overall felt really good. But it was a work in progress, and I still had many questions and concerns about nutrition and living this plant-based lifestyle for the long run. Especially now, with a recent addition to our family, I felt that I really needed to find answers. So I decided to go on a journey to search for the truth and to uncover many of the myths surrounding food. For 3 years, I traveled across the country and interviewed the world's top authorities on the subject, as well as people that had experienced amazing life-changing benefits through healthy eating, all to explore the idea of what is the healthiest and most sustainable diet for ourselves, future generations, and our planet. So join me on this journey of shocking discoveries and buckle up, because what you're about to learn might forever change the way you look at the food on your plate.
Well, there's a lot of difference of opinion about it, and there's a faction of people who insist that there are different diets for different people. But I think that the evidence is fairly clear that that's not true, and there really is an appropriate diet for humans, just like there's a best diet for cats, dogs, elephants, and any other mammal. And the best diet for humans is one that is plant-based, almost all calories coming from 4 principal food groups: fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. It's low in fat, high in fiber, not very much processed food. None is great, but in today's world, I don't know how realistic that is.
Very, very interesting there. That's the Food Choices documentary. Thanks so much for introducing that to us, Felicity. And it's interesting seeing so many of these filmmakers. We often feature them on Revelation TV on Get Well, Stay Well. And they're all going through their own little journey as well. And they're kind of doing the research and discovering new things themselves as well.
Yes, and you know, people love to follow someone's journey, I think, when, you know, when you have a story related to you.
Yes.
It's interesting, isn't it, someone's personal experience.
It just gives that personal touch and it makes it more personable.
You know, what he was talking about, overconsumption, it reminded me that when I trained, we were told that each person's stomach is only the size of their fist. And when you think how small the fist is, so
Wow.
that's the amount we can really eat
Right.
at a time.
Yeah.
Just, it's a plate, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a tiny, small plate. I now have small little bowls of vegetables, which is basically what I live on, flavored with garlic. So I love that. I get lots and lots of garlic into my body to try and fight off infections and stuff. So, you know, just a small little bowl like that, that's fine for me now. And I think it's what we're used to. But, you know, when you go out for a meal, you know, we used to have 3 courses. We had a starter, we had a main, and we had a dessert, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. And you go out, and the thing is, when you go out for a meal, 3-course meal, you feel, I'm paying for it, so I'm going to use it, and I'm going to eat it. It's a waste if I don't. But what about when we were growing up, and it was always told, never waste your food. Always finish all the food that's on your plate.
That's right. I'm a war baby, of course, so it was definitely ingrained into me. Yes, the poor children starving, you know, because you're not eating, and I always think that's not right because they're not going to get it anyway. But yes, it's really interesting that people are thinking much more, I think, about their food. Also, she mentioned the SOS, what I call the SOS part, which is the sugars, the oils, and the salts. And that's really been the problem, that we've got onto the wrong sugars, you know, the aspartame and the artificial sugars that are even worse than piling the white refined stuff on our plate.
Because what if people are watching us today and they say, okay, Felicity, I love my cup of coffee every morning. I can't start my day without a cup of coffee or a tea. And yes, I hear your concern about sugars, so I'm going from 2 teaspoons to 1. What would you say about that?
Well, it's a move in the right direction,
Correct.
Si, isn't it? You know, so you have to thank God for every little move.
But there
is
is a substitute, isn't there?
Well, of course, you do stevia. You know, you can get stevia in the liquid form or the grain form. And really, it's very, very sweet, and it's a green plant. So, you know, God has provided wonderful solutions for us if we only know where to look.
Yeah.
And so that's the sugars, and then the oils. You know, we've got onto the hydrogenated oils, which came out, and people were buying the hydrogenated fats, which were always marketed as being very healthy. And of course, I believed all that stuff as well. I was making all my cakes with that stuff instead of real butter.
What about the misinformation on food sometimes that we receive? There's so many, for example, we used to watching television, we watch the commercials on television, the adverts, and there's so many food adverts on there, and this is good for you, this is... And what do we believe in? That's the point we're trying to make. We need to be doing our own research, or what do we believe in?
This is the thing. I mean, there's a lot of money in the food lobbies, as we know. Huge amounts of money in the dairy lobby and the meat lobby, so that you never see potatoes and onions being marketed on TV, do you? You know how wonderful that is, because there's no money in it.
Yeah.
So the food lobbies, and of course they control the parliaments, and you know, there's a shadow government, as we know, that's over everything, really above our politicians, who don't really have the final say. So there's a lot of corruption, a lot of misinformation, and we, the public, or we, the people, as they say in America, are actually suffering and dying because we've been given misinformation. And you see, again and again, we come back to God's wonderful diet in creation, with the fruit, the herbs, the vegetables, seeds, nuts, and green plant. Lo and behold, when we come back to that, people heal.
Now, we often talk about it's so important to have our right protein as well. But there are good proteins and there are bad proteins, aren't there?
Yeah, well, the bad protein is the dead animals, which have got all kinds of additives and growth hormones, antibiotics, all the chemicals that the animal is treated with and fed with during its life. And that's the damaging thing. So the best protein on Earth is in fact the plant protein. So when you grow your greens, you know, when you get more protein out of that. Most people can't believe that, but if you grow the seeds particularly, you sprout the seeds and you buckwheat sprouts, you get sunflower sprouts, that's the best protein in the world.
Excellent.
So in the eagle's nest, I'm growing my little herbs up there. You know, I've got beautiful coriander and mint and celery. We've got all kinds of good things. I've got aloe growing up there as well. Your mother's given me some lovely plants, so they're doing
She loves
well.
her plants.
I know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so do I.
Yeah,
So do I, because they're food.
There's something fulfilling as well when you've got your
Yeah.
plants at home. It's
Yes.
very comforting, but seeing it also grow, and you're very proud, aren't you?
Absolutely. When your first lemons come out, you know, big moment. Got to take photographs.
Yeah, exactly. I receive all the photographs, don't worry.
Good.
Mum sends them to me all the time. All right, let's have a look at our next item. Let's talk about the plant-based diet.
I thought we were really eating well. We were living on a farm at that time, and we raised chickens and ducks and geese, and we ate their eggs, and our neighbor raised cows that we had the benefit of having meat from also. And we ate a lot of fruits and vegetables, but we still ate quite a bit of meat, and we were still consuming a lot of dairy. But we thought we were doing the right thing. You know, when you go on the internet and you look for the healthiest way to eat for optimal health, there's so much information out there and it's so confusing. I mean, who do you believe? But then after reading this book, I think it really cleared up a lot of things for me. A lot of misconceptions and beliefs that I'd had my whole life that really needed to be cleared up. So we started right away, and my husband and I decided to do it, just to go in all the way. We weren't going to try to transition, we were just going to do it right off the bat. And we told our teenage daughters that if they wanted to do this, that was great, but they didn't have to. They could make their own choice. But they decided to go all in with us, so that was great. It made my life a lot easier, so I only had to cook one meal. You know, I didn't have to cook special things for anybody, or, you know, no one was left out. And I think within the first week, it was just amazing, the changes that were happening so quickly. Right away, we started losing weight. We started feeling better, you know, waking up in the morning. And, you know, I was only 40 at that time. And I just felt achy when I woke up, and I felt like an old lady. I'm like, gosh, I'm only 40 years old. This is crazy. So after a week to 2 weeks, losing a bunch of weight, not feeling achy anymore, and I felt like I had all of this energy. And before, I was drinking a lot of coffee just to stay, you know, awake for all of the things I needed to get done in a day. You know, being a mom, a stay-home mom, there's a lot to do, a lot to get done. But eating this way, I don't feel like I need caffeine. I feel like I have a lot of energy, and it's coming from a good place, and it doesn't have a negative consequence. You know, eating as much fruits and vegetables and whole foods as you want only does better things in your body. Unfortunately, the more coffee you drink, the worse your health conditions get. So this was a much better choice, of course.
Oh, such an interesting video there talking about the plant-based diet. Felicity, if viewers are watching us today and they're saying, okay, okay, that's it. I'm going to change my life. I want to go with the plant-based diet. Would you recommend for them to go radical or just ease themselves into it gently?
Well, you know, it depends how you work, but for me, to go radical is much easier. To clear out the kitchen, get rid of all the tempting stuff, and just go for it.
So
you know?
step number one is open up your kitchen cupboards.
Give away anything that is not going to be right for you anymore.
And what does that include? What should we be looking out for to say we need to be avoiding this in our cupboards?
Basically the meat and the dairy. So that's your
Anything
cheese.
with sugar-based.
That's an awful moment when you think the cheese has got to go as well, because I think that's a natural thing we go for when we cut out meat and fish and chicken. So, you know, we're thinking of something really nice and beautiful cheeses. But you can get vegan cheeses.
Okay.
You know, there are alternatives. And if people go to a good organic shop, they will be able to get those right
What are the
things.
main health differences between the vegan cheese, obviously, and the normal cheese?
Well, it's just that the ordinary cheese, which comes from the cow, has got all the bacteria, it's got all the difficulties, the acidity in it, of course, it's acidity in milk and dairy. You know, we don't think about alkaline food and acid food until we really start looking at the science of it. We realize that food turns to acid in the body, which makes us sick, or food turns to alkaline in the body, which heals us. So that's the first thing to really take on board. I think when you understand this stuff in your mind, then you can start to control your food habits, because you think what this is doing to you. For instance, if it's going to cause more pain, if someone's got arthritis and they give up the meat, you know, when you're out of pain suddenly, you are so grateful
Yes.
that it's worth doing it. And you look at a steak and you think, do I really want to do that? Because
Yeah.
I'm the pain in my hands maybe afterwards. No, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So you go for the vegetables instead. So yeah, it's really understanding the science first, and reading a book like the book that she loved was the Joel Fuhrman book, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, who used to be an Olympic athlete himself. And again, you know, he's a medical doctor, and he got himself into the Olympic Games by getting really, really fit.
What about the energy that we're getting from obtaining from the foods that we're eating? Obviously, with the plant-based diets, from experience, you have so much more energy than you previously did. And we've often talked about you have less energy from animal diets, anything that with meat, because you're eating something from a dead animal.
That's right, and it causes inflammation in the body. And inflammation is the basis of disease. Nobody ever taught us this. I mean, I was at nursing school, never taught any of this stuff. In fact, you were encouraged with the food pyramid, you know, to be filled up with the animal protein at the main thing at the bottom of the pyramid. So everything has changed now, and it's, thank goodness all this research has been done. It's all been done in my lifetime. It's really interesting. So what I was told in my 20s, you know, is completely different now. And we can see it's really working.
And what about for our children? How can our children stay healthy? Is it healthy for them to go onto a plant-based diet?
Absolutely, it's the healthiest way for them, but lots of fresh fruit and vegetables. And with dairy, you know, there was a Professor Jane Plant who couldn't get rid of her own breast cancer. And when her husband was working out in Japan, he suddenly twigged on to the diet that they had there. And he said to her, you know, these women haven't got breast cancer here, Jane, and they don't have dairy. And she put two and two together, gave up dairy, and she finally got rid of her breast cancer after years and years of treatment.
Wow.
So this is a professor, this is, you know, someone who's worked it out for themselves.
We've talked about staying healthy with the foods that we're eating, but how important is it for us to be staying healthy in our mental state as well?
Oh, now we're coming on to the bit that I really loved about this program, and it's so important that we are able to completely, what we call chill out, you know, to find serenity, tranquility. You and I have our faith, which is the reason that we're sitting here and able to do these programs, that, you know, we know God
and it's faith. It's only because God is in. If viewers know what goes on in our lives off camera, it's so hectic, isn't it?
Yes.
You're non-stop, but it's only God gives us, I guess, that peace, because it's something about coming on set, sitting here to do this program. We're just disconnected from the outside world, isn't it? And only God can give us that peace.
That's right. And I've always asked, you know, the Jabez prayer is that, you know, God asks, Jabez asks God if he'll extend his territories, enlarge his tent pegs, it says in the Bible, and God granted his request. And, you know, I prayed that over my ministry right from the very start. I prayed it over our beautiful new international centre as well.
Lovely. Now, before we finish today's programme, Felicity, I just want our viewers to just get themselves in the right mental state. We're going to show a lovely little video of some cool sounding waves. Just listen to this for a few seconds and just distract and just think, I'm in peace. Listen to this now. As we can hear this lovely, cool sounding waves, Felicity, it's so peaceful, isn't it? And sometimes you just disconnect and just realise, what are we here for?
It's just wonderful, isn't it? And the lovely thing is that on YouTube, they have these lovely films. They go on for 2 hours and 3 hours sometimes. And so people can go to sleep with this. And what could be more lovely than to hear the waves? You can just see that the palm trees moving slightly, you know.
It's so peaceful, isn't it? Just looking and hearing that about the waves. And that's something that quite a lot of people say, I have problems sleeping at night. I have problems sleeping at night and I just don't know how to get to sleep. But listening to those cool and calming sounds, and maybe it's a piece of advice before you go to sleep to listen to it as well. You don't necessarily need to listen to it all the way through the night, but it's always depends on what you're doing just before you go to sleep as well. If you're writing emails and you're busy before you've actually gone to sleep, your mind is still very much alert, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that's what you and I do, Si. I know, because sometimes we're emailing each other at 2 in the morning about the program the next day. So yes, you've got to turn that screen off, and you see the joy of it is that actually we might not be in this beautiful tropical place, but if you actually look at the film and you concentrate, you meditate, as Jesus says we should meditate on that which is beautiful, lovely, true and pure, and creation is so gorgeous.
Yeah.
So if we start to meditate on that, and you know, immediately the blood pressure goes down, normalizes, and we get into harmony.
Excellent. Felicity, we've come towards the end of today's programme. Thanks so much, as always, for joining us.
Bless you, Si.
Thank you also to our lovely viewers. Just want to remind you, we've got a catch-up service on our website. Just log on to www.revelationtv.com. We're also on social media. Go on to either YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and simply type in Revelation TV. If you enjoyed this program, please share it, tell your friends about it. We'll be here same time next time on Revelation TV. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care and God bless. Bye-bye.